Good day, and welcome to our explanation and demonstration of how to manually migrate your WordPress website from one host to another. In this case, we're going to move from GoDaddy to a company called InMotionHosting. I've been with GoDaddy for many years, but I'm having some troubles with a set of servers, and GoDaddy, while the service is pretty good, they can't seem to solve it. So I've moved most of my sites already over to InMotion, and I've got a couple left to do, and I thought we'd show you how to do it. So what we've done is, in GoDaddy, we have taken a backup of the database. Now you'll have to contact your host to figure out how to do that, but it's not very hard. You can just go into the SQL administrator and select export or backup or whatever it is, and it will create an SQL file. It also might create an SQL.zip file because it's compressed, and that's just fine. As long as it's the SQL database, you're going to be okay. Then the next thing you need to do is to go into your server using an FTP tool like FileZilla. And when I say your server, I'm speaking of the source server. So in our case, it's GoDaddy, and you need to copy the entire directory from that original host, from that source host, to your PC, to your computer. And we're rolling through that now. You can see there's 700 left, and you can see the server I'm pulling from GoDaddy is just having trouble. See all these drops that are going through? It just keeps dropping. I don't know what's going on with it, but and GoDaddy doesn't either. But after a couple of months of banging on this, I just can't wait any longer. So after an extensive evaluation and several trials, we've ended up with InMotion, and so far, pretty darn happy with them. So let's let this finish, and we'll get to it. There we go. So as you can see, I have a nice backup of the files. And now what I need to do is create a blank database in the destination server, which in my case is InMotion hosting. And then I need to restore everything over top of that blank database. So let's get to that. First thing I need to do is go into my cPanel through InMotionHosting and go to add-on domains. And I'm going to need to add on electriccaddy.com. And when I press tab, it's going to populate the rest of it for me, and there's nothing else I need to do here. There we go. And this won't take very long, just a few seconds. And there it is, electriccaddy.com has been built. Now, I need to go back to cPanel, and I need to go to software, which in this case, there's a couple of ways to get to it, but the easiest way for me is simply to go to top applications and click WordPress. That'll bring up the WordPress installer. I simply click install, and it says, okay, well, what website do you want it to go to? Well, I would like it to go to Electric Caddy. There we go. And you think, well, which directory do you want it to be in? You just leave this alone. Now, if you're not sure what version of WordPress you've got, but it's an old one, you probably want to select an older build here. In my case, I know what will happen is, because I've done a bunch of these already, leaving it at 5.5 will work just fine. When I log in, it's going to tell me there's a little upgrade to do. I select yes, and we're on our way. So let's go here. Now, just to make sure I know I've got the setup right, I just type something in here. You don't have to, by the way. That's just the title. Someone's going to call that electric. And in this case, InMotion wants to install a bunch of stuff. I don't want it installed. I don't want anything installed at this point. And this is critical, this little part at the bottom here. So advanced options. What you need to do is make sure that the table prefix is set to whatever the table of prefix was set to before. And you think, geez, man, I don't know what that is. Okay, well, if you don't know, it's easy enough to find out. What you do is go to your backup, go to your SQL file, like we've got here, and just edit it. I've got Notepad++, but you can edit it with WordPad or with Notepad, just regular. You'd be on your way. So let's click on that. And let's bring it over. Now, looking through here, you can see that all of mine start with WP_. And you can look through this and see what the other ones are, but basically that's it. So in my case, I've really got to make sure that this is set to WP_. Now, the other thing is I've got a lot of databases and I don't like it having a generic name. You can call it whatever you want, by the way. This doesn't make any difference. But I'm going to call mine Electric Caddy. Elec CDI. There we go. So that I know what it is. It doesn't make much difference, but that's what I'm going to call it. Ooh, too many letters. So let's go with ECAD. E. There we go. And now I'll click Install. And this will install very quickly. Oops. Password length must be greater than 40. Oh, right. I forgot to put in a username. So I'm going to put that in, a username and a password. That's just the default to get in, by the way. Now, I'm not going to let you see this because, it's pretty confidential. But you do need to put something in here. So so I'll do that and I'll be back in a second. There we go. Now I'll just scroll down and I'll select install. And you see that this installs very, very quickly. Much faster than I would have thought. And now I've got a website here, and you think, well, okay, now how do I get into that? The easiest way to get into it is to simply go to your DNS, which is basically a phone book for the internet, and point that DNS to whatever your new server is from the old one. So I'll show you that. Here it is. In my GoDaddy case, the example of being the source server, and in my case, where I've got my DNS set up currently, I'm going to change it probably to InMotion, although I do use Cloudflare for a lot of things, but it's not really relevant where it is. What you need to do is go fix it wherever it is now. So I'm going to go down until I find Electric Caddy here. There it is. And this is again GoDaddy solution. Let's go here. Now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to select Manage DNS. And there we go. Now, what I have to do is simply edit this and put in the new IP address. And there it is. Now, another way to go, if you want to keep the old site operational, the old host operational, another way to go is to simply edit your hosts file. And if you're not familiar with your hosts file, basically it's a little text file that was built and thought of years ago before DNS was a thing. And yeah, it's literally that old. It's basically when you created a list of all of the sites that you'd want to go to for various reasons, and you did it manually. Now I'll show you that, but most people won't want to do this. All you do is put in the IP address and then the domain name. Don't do the www, don't do anything else, just put in the root and save this. Now, if you're not familiar, it's a bit of a hassle to save into C, Windows, System32 drivers, etc. By the way, that's where it goes. So you can look that up if this is what you're interested in. I'm just trying to point out that it's another way to go if you need to keep the old site functional while you're still finishing off the new site. This is the way to do it so that you can get into it, but other people can't. Okay, so let's get rid of that. We'll just assume you don't want to do that and that all you've done is change your DNS, which is what I'm showing. Now we need to clear out that brand new site that was installed, which is just really a placeholder. It's a way to create a database and get it set up on your host, but you actually don't want the content. So what you should do is just delete everything here in your new host's domain folder. So in my case, I've got an electriccaddy.com here. However, I'm hesitant to delete things quickly, just from years of experience. So instead of doing that, I'm simply going to create a new directory. I'm going to call it del me base. You can call it whatever you want. And I'm going to put everything in here with a couple of exceptions. So I'm going to select all of these folders. I'm going to leave the well-known. That has to do with the encryption. And I don't know whether it's necessary or not, so just leave it. It won't cause any harm if it's not needed. But the big one you've really got to leave is WP config. That one has to be left right where it is. Now, take all of the other files and folders and move them into this delme folder. Basically, just a way to get rid of them. You could just delete them, but I'm more cautious. I'll get around to deleting this later. Now what I need to do is move all of the files and folders from my backup into this location. And here's my backup, and I'm simply going to grab all of the files and copy them in. And they'll take a little while, so we'll come back after they're finished. All right, so the transfers are done. Now, we could just go ahead and restore the database, but while we're here, there's one thing I've noticed that seems to cause a problem with a number of restores, so a number of these migrations. So let's just take a look at it. If you go into your WP content folder and then into your plugins folder, it depends on which ones you've got, but for me, I have found that both WP Supercache and WordFence cause me problems sometimes during the restores. Not always, but sometimes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here and I'm just going to label it Delme. And you think, well, it's going to get rid of it. Yes, that's correct, and I'll just re-add it later. That's okay. So when Supercache is another one that I like, let's just do that. There we are. Now, I think everything else in here is probably just fine. So what we need to do now is go and start the database restore. That's pretty straightforward, so let's just take a look. Once again, we go back to our cPanel, and what you want to look for is under databases, phpMyAdmin. So let's take a look here, and I'm going to select the eCaddy database that I created earlier, and you'll notice that all of the tables start with WP underscore because that's what I set it to, and that's a good thing. Now, to provide the old data, you simply select import and go find it. So choose file, and here we are. I've got my backups in here. Electric Caddy is that one, and let's select open. There's nothing else to change here. Just let it go. And you'll notice very quickly that you get a whole lot of new tables. There we go. All right, now let's go take a look and see what we've got. So I'll just bring up a new tab and I'll type in electriccaddy.com. Now you might get a warning here about it not being secure, and that's okay. Just ignore it and say yes, continue. And I'll explain that in just a minute. Depends on which host you're with, why that may or may not happen. Let's just take a look here. So I've gone through it, and there's a site, and this is a site I'm shutting down, by the way, so there's not a lot of point to migrating it. But by the way, if you'd like a domain, how about buying this one? But as you can see, it is up. So let's go to WP admin and sign in. I'm going to set it so I'm going to block that so you can't see me type in my username and password here. There it is. Now, if I go into my plugins, I can see which plugins are installed, and WordPress, or WordFence I should say, will probably be listed because it's in the database, but the files are missing, so that's a problem. So let's go through here, and yeah, there's WordFence security. I'm simply going to delete it because I don't want to use that. I'm also going to do the same with WP Supercache, and there we go. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to upgrade it, as you can see here. Now, I was a bit surprised with this database. I didn't get a pop-up that said the very first time I went to it and logged in, I was expecting to see a pop-up that said, hey, you need to update your database, but it didn't, so okay. But I have seen that on many other ones. Let's go to my dashboard, and you'll see I'm running 5.4.2, and I've got to update to 5.5, so let's do that. By the way, I don't have to, but I'm going to. I want it to be current, so I have the most protection. And there it is, update now. And this takes a minute or so, so I will be back in just a moment. There we go. So it only popped up for a second, but it showed everything that was that had run through, and now it says update the WordPress database. And badingo, there we go. And now it's up and happy. So let's go back to our plugins, and I will install those two plugins again. So if you saw it just as it just flashed there that there was a problem with the website. If that happens to you, just wait another minute. Then so click back and just wait another minute. It says that the upgrade's finished, but I've noticed it. I don't think it is. So let's try now and go to install plugins, and hopefully it comes through this time without choking. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to now add new, and I'm not going to waste your time showing these installations, but I'm going to reinstall WordFence, and I'm going to spell it properly. And yeah, there we go. We're on our way. There are a couple of little things left to do at the back end. So let's show you those. But again, you'd want to reinstall any plugins that you'd removed. So that's what I'm showing you here. Let's flip over now back to InMotionHosting, and we'll take a look at the 2 things you should check. So here we are back at our cPanel, and you want to go to your multi-PHP manager and make sure that your, where is it here, Electric Caddy, there it is right there, that you're running the most current PHP. And if it's not, let's say like Commodore isn't here, you can simply select it, and I can go down here and set it to whichever one I want. Now, Commodore, I know, has a problem with the newer PHPs, so I'm leaving that one. But if yours isn't running the newest PHP, you're really going to want to change it, because PHP is what all of this stuff works on. It's a programming language, and you're going to want to make sure that it's current. So it'll be a lot faster with 7 versus 5, I should say, and certainly more secure. Another thing to check is the SSL capabilities. So go back to your control panel, or your cPanel, I should say, and go down to SSL TLS status. And if you have used the DNS method of changing over your domain so that the old domain no longer functions and it's only on the new one, everything's going to be fine. If, however, you used the method of changing your hosts file, well, then you're going to need to rerun the auto SSL. So what you simply do is go through and remove the previous ones, and let's see, yeah, so these aren't running, these aren't happy. Let's go through here. I'm going to run auto SSL. I'm going to select the ones I want, which are all of the Electric Caddy ones. Yeah, I'm not using mail or any of the rest of these, but we'll set them up anyway. So there we go. So let's do run auto SSL, and that will set up the SSL certificate for them. Normally, you don't have to do this if you've set it up through your DNS. If you set it up through a host file, you do have to do this. But anyway, it is what it is. So let's let this run through. This will take a minute, so I'll come back when it's done. And there we go. Let's take a look. Yeah, you can see Electric Caddy now is green. That looks happy. And there's a few of them that are just weird. I exclude these from auto SSL. You don't have to, because they'll just be ignored. But they're not helpful. So yeah, I just clear them off, and then I know that they're garbage. So now I talked with support about this very briefly, and they said just do what I'm doing. There's probably a better way to go, but this certainly works. All right, let's take a look at the site now and see if it works, as we expect. So I'm going to go back here, and you can see HTTPS is crossed out. Let's refresh that. See if this works now. Well, it hasn't blown up, so that's good. Now I'm going to bring up a new browser, and I'm going to go to HTTPS. Whoops! Wow, that was bad. electriccaddy.com. There it is, and look, we have a lock. And I can look at the certificate and see that it's from our good friends at cPanel. And yeah, that's pretty much that. If you have any questions or concerns, please get a hold of us at www.urtech.ca.